Okay, we are live. I apologize for the delay. Teresa had somebody mowing the lawn right out front, and you weren't going to be able to hear her or me, so we decided to just wait until they moved.
It was an upper limit.
It was an upper limit.
Effect. I did not want to get on today. So
see,
I mean, I come outside and they're cutting the fucking grass right now.
Yeah, but instead of texting me and saying it's not going to happen, they're cutting the grass, she's like, no, I'm going to show up anyway, and we're just going to have to wait it out and ask him to move and finish what he's doing quickly, and we'll just like, it's good, right? So there it is, the upper limits at work, and we're talking about chapter 2 of the Big Leap. But before we get into that, I want to just quickly remind everybody, I added a little ticker at the bottom. I'm very proud of myself. For those of you who are watching live or on the replay, we are in, we have a goal to reach more people. And so we need your help. So for those of you who have been watching now for 16, 17 episodes, you understand the power of our conversations. I even had one girl say, you know, I bring a pen and a notepad to every episode because it's like a mini masterclass in itself, which I appreciate immensely. So we are asking for your help to share us with the people that you know and love. So for everybody who shares an episode of our podcast, we are going to give you access to an exclusive subliminal affirmation, a guided audio, and an affirmation poster that we created just for listeners of our podcast, or watchers, I guess, of our podcast. And so all you have to do is click the share button below. Now, this unfortunately only works on Facebook, but click the little shared button below, share it to your page, and then comment shared below on the video. That would mean so much to us. And then as an additional thank you, we're also going to enter you into a monthly giveaway. This is the first month we're doing this. We're going to enter you into a monthly giveaway where you're going to win a free custom subliminal, where I collect information from you and create custom affirmations and record a custom subliminal affirmation for you that you can listen to as often as you want to reprogram your minds for your goals specifically and what you're manifesting specifically. And you'll also win a Reiki session with Teresa, which, I mean, I don't have to tell you. I mean, maybe I do have to tell you because you haven't had one, but they're amazing. They're amazing. And you want one. I'm telling you right now, she's the only person I go to for Reiki sessions. She's incredible. She has helped me shift in so many ways, and she's helped so many other people shift in so many ways. It's absolutely unbelievable. So trust me when I tell you that you want to win this prize. Now, for those of you who have already shared an episode, thank you so much. I really appreciate that people started sharing episodes last week when we announced this. And so to encourage you to continue to share episodes, even though you've already got your free subliminal and guided meditation and affirmation poster, we would love it if you would also go ahead and tag friends, neighbors, coworkers, sisters, whoever below. And for each person you tag, you'll get an additional entry into the giveaway. So the more people you tag, the more chances you have of winning. And we just greatly, greatly appreciate your help in spreading the word. So with that being said, let's get into today's topic. So we are still discussing the Big Leap. We are on chapter 2 today, where he goes into, he being Gay Hendricks, the author, talks about how you can actually spot the problem. Like, he's getting into now the specifics of how you can see where your problem starts, what the barriers are, and how that all works. So before we get into that, I just, like Teresa said when we hopped on, she hit an upper limit today. Well, I guess we both did because, you know, it's my reality too. It's my podcast too. And so I guess I also hit an upper limit. But I realized something kind of interesting the other day. So in the book, The Big Leap, Gay Hendricks talks about the upper limit. And this is, again, for those of you who are just joining us now and have not been reading along or haven't been following the podcast episodes, the Big Leap is basically talking about how we all have in us a natural thermostat for the amount of good feelings we'll allow into our lives. And when something exponentially good happens, like you hit a financial windfall, you fall in love with a new person, you are promoted at work, you overcome an illness, like something really, really good happens to trigger your thermostat. It goes above the amount of good you normally allow into your life and you're used to having in your life. You trigger what's called the upper limit problem, where you then in some other area in your life will sabotage yourself. So I've mentioned before that one of my classic sabotage moves is something really good will happen, say in my business, and then I'll pick a fight with my husband because just like everybody else, our thermostat can't be exceeded for very long. And so the whole idea here is we are expanding our ability and our willingness to feel good more of the time by sitting with those good feelings more often. So something I found kind of interesting is the way he talks about it is that the upper limit is triggered after something good happens. But something I've noticed in myself the last little bit, and it kind of like, I got an epiphany, I don't know if it was last night or this morning. For those of you who are kind of in my world more intimately, you know that I'm working on rolling out a new membership that I'm super, super freaking excited about. And I'm almost done. It's like almost ready to go. And what I've kind of noticed is that somehow I seem to be triggering an upper limit before the success has even hit. So I didn't realize that that was a thing that you could like normally an upper limit rides on the coattails of some kind of success or some kind of good thing. But what I'm noticing is it's kind of happening before I even have a chance to finish the thing that I'm working on, which I find kind of interesting. I'm not going to get into the details of the upper limit right this second, but it's just interesting, right? When you have this heightened awareness and he says right in chapter 2, somewhere near the beginning, he says like, once you start to shine a light on it, we take them as what is this? Okay, so he's talking about the hidden barrier specifically, but he says, when we take them as true and real, until we shine an awareness on them, they're going to be there. You know, the barriers and the upper limits and things can't stop until we have the awareness to see that that's what's happening, right? And so like Teresa said, like this morning, she knew she didn't want to come on live for whatever reason is going on. You know, we both upper limits are hitting, right? So she knew she didn't want to come on. And then she is actually given a legitimate excuse why she can't come on. And still, because of the awareness she has of what's going on, said, no, F that. I'm going
to log in and I'm going to let you hear the noise happening. And if you'd like, I'm going to show you the video so you can see what's going on in the moment. But I'm not running.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
I think this, you know, I always talk about collectively, right? Because we're all connected. So I'll say right now, this is a huge thing collectively, running from our shit, running from healing, running from mindset, you know, transforming it, running from whatever problems or issues that we're dealing with. I have a lot of people who reach out to me right now on Instagram. They've been reaching out to me for years. I'm not even playing with you. Years, these same people. So every time they pop in and they send me a message, and it's always like, Teresa, I need you now. Everything's falling apart. I don't know what's going on. Da, 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 da. So I say, okay, what day do you need me? Blah, 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 blah. And before, I wasn't making everybody like pay up front payment wise, you know, it's like, okay, well, maybe a portion or something, and I'll see you next weekend. But they don't show up. Okay. Then I see them on their stories. They went out to drink. They went out to the club. They went out to party, right? Not realizing that they're running from themselves.
Right.
You're running into these temporary fixes. You're running from the work. Why? I don't know. We have to uncover to see what's going on while you're running. You know what I'm saying? This is why we're doing this book, right?
Right.
I had another person yesterday. When I say years, she has been by my side from, 2016. 16? Yeah. To today. So she's seen everything that I have gone through. The transformation from not wanting to live to fucking thriving and sharing myself with the world now. And we'll always reach out. It's like she gets her toes wet and then she disappears, comes in, disappears. So yesterday I was like, you know what? If you are serious this time, you want this, you're going to fucking send me the payment right now. Period. You're sending me the payment. That's like the only way that I am putting you down on my books, and you're not getting a fucking refund. You're not running no more. Period. And so she's like, okay, I get it. Tell me why when she goes to do the Zelle, she can't get into her account. And she's sending me the screenshots of it. She's like, look at what's happening. I said, you know what's happening right now. Have you been following us in the Big Leap? Have you been reading this book? You're hitting an upper limit. Because guess what? The moment that you start with me, things are going to get shaken up in your life. You're going to have, it's almost like we're doing, this book is almost a little bit shadow work-ish. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Right?
So.
Because it talks about, if you were the golden child and your parents compared you to your siblings, you know, that could be a reason why you're holding yourself back, because you don't want to outshine them.
Right.
So then it causes you to dig deep and to look at that like, oh my God, this is what happened as I was growing up. And I do feel this way, like, holy shit. So again, we've talked about the ego part of ourselves too. You know, it doesn't want to die. All our old ways don't want to die. So all this fear starts getting kicked in, like, oh shit, if I go work with Teresa or Danielle, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, your life is going to change completely. And that's scary. So all of this shit kicks in to stop you. But you guys, let me tell you something. If you're reaching out to either one of us, that's your soul. That's your higher self that knows that you are meant for so much more in this life and knows exactly where to guide you, right? It's connected to the subconscious mind. I've talked about this before. The book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, says that intelligent substance that exists within your subconscious mind, once you have a desire or a knowing, it has clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. It leaves you, scans the whole universe for exactly what you need. So your internal guidance system, that God part of you, is leading you exactly where you need to be. We have to have this awareness and stop fighting it. It's guiding us, it's leading us to our dreams, but then we hit these upper limits and we stop right in our tracks. But then guess what? It's going to be fucking years that you're messaging me. Years.
Yeah.
In the same place. I already know when I see the stories and they're like having the fucking time of their life. And I know these things because I've lived it. I've walked through this, you know. I know I was using all of these outside things to make me feel good for that moment. Like, oh, I don't need that help anymore. Oh, I don't need, you know, that guidance. I'm good now. He talks about that in this book too, in this very chapter, how the lady came in, everything was falling apart. You know, she's given guidance. It worked in that moment. But if we don't stabilize it and cement these things, and that's also, you know, even the mindset work that we're talking about, the affirmations and stuff like that. Just because your desire comes in, you don't stop. You keep affirming, you keep persisting until this new reality is solidified and you're not going back into the old ways and the old habits and being stuck in those cycles. So it's crazy how everything is just meshing together here, you know, but again, like, how bad do you want this? How fucking tired are you of being in the same place? Yeah. That's a lot of what it comes down to. We have to face our shit. There's no other way. Yeah. There's no other way around it. Exactly. And it's like Derek's chiming in. My husband is actually at a car repair appointment right now, but he's still tuning in. Thanks, babe. And he says it's like weight loss diets. It works as long as you do it, but when you stop, it all comes back. People don't realize it's a lifestyle change, and that often involves a lot more than we can comprehend. That's why you need the accountability with a coach or a support system. Right. And he also said, you have to want it too. You can't just be in love with the idea of it. And that's something I think Teresa and I see a lot. And we've been there ourselves, which is why we can sniff it out so well. You know, like attracts like, we can see. Right. And for those of you who are either looking to work with a coach or who are a coach yourself, and you're noticing this in your clients, like, that's not an accident. You've gone through the things you've gone through because you're meant to help people with those same things. Or you're drawn to the people you're drawn to because the people that you're watching, say Teresa and I, you're drawn to us, whether you realize it or not. And of course, we're not giving our entire life story in every episode. So depending on when you come into our lives, like, it's very, very, very good chance that whichever one of us you're more drawn to, or just in general, that we've actually been through something that you are going through now, which is why you're drawn to us, because like attracts like I said, right? But you also cannot just be, like Derek's saying, you can't just be in love with the idea. You have to actually want the change. And that's where this big leap comes into play, because I know we all want our lives to be different, right? We all want the things that we want. We all imagine how good it can be, but it is work to do the work, right? Like Teresa said, when you work with her, shit gets stirred up. And sometimes that includes, almost always, that includes things also falling away, right? So you have to be fully on board with being okay with whatever happens, knowing, and this is part of my manifestation process, is surrender to the process. You have to understand that whatever comes up from this point forward is only serving you, and it's only helping you get closer to where you want to be. And that's why this book is so important to us, is because we want to help you recognize when you're getting in your own way and
know that you're not alone, that it happens to literally everybody. And he even says in here, like, even if you're already, I think it's even right in the beginning here, even if you're already successful, you're still going to have an upper limit. Like everybody has one. It's not, and he even says, it's not like it doesn't happen to me. I just can see it coming and I can mitigate it right out of the gate rather than, 2 weeks later and you're like, oh my God, I had an upper limit 2 weeks ago when this happened. And then this subsequent thing happened, right?
Just to piggyback before we go forward more on the weight loss, and definitely is part of becoming a lifestyle, right? But without knowing about upper limits, how many times do the people who are that are trying, you are giving it your all,
right?
You're not even understanding yourself why you cannot stick to this, why you keep failing. You have outside people or people close to you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're just lazy. You can't get shit done. You're this. Yeah. So all of these things are being compounded onto this person in their own mind, plus people outside of them. Right. When if you're doing this work, you can be like, okay, let's sit down. You're hitting some kind of upper limit. We need to see where it's coming from. And you could easily work through it instead of you're doing better in your life. You're doing good. Things are getting great. You're rising up. And then because of this one thing, everything just completely falls apart because you're like, oh, fuck, maybe I am lazy. Maybe I'm a piece of shit. Maybe I can't do anything right. You get what I'm saying? It's like compounding all this shit that is so unnecessary, and your life keeps falling apart over and over and over. And then it goes to you're not good enough when it's not even any of that shit. It's none of it. You're hitting a fucking upper limit. Sit down, get a pen and a paper. Okay, what's really going on? What happened to me as a kid? Was there somewhere in there, And as you dig, you will find every single time that's exactly what it is. And once we have an awareness, we just fucking delete it and we keep moving instead of everything completely falling apart over and over and over. Any progress that we made is completely deleted. We don't have to do that anymore is what we're saying. We don't have to go all the way back to square one every single time in our progress to find out where these things have originated from. Yes, we have to go to square one and but we don't have to completely start our lives over and over at the bottom. And
well, exactly. And we have to recognize and give ourselves more credit, because even if no matter how intentionally you're doing the work, every day you wake up a new person, because every conversation you've had, every podcast you've listened to, every book you've read, every show you've watched, every interaction you've had has helped make you who you are today. So each day you wake up a new person. So no matter what, I mean, obviously if you're doing the work more intentionally and deliberately, that transformation is going to happen faster. But you have to understand that even if you're reliving the same pattern for the 6th time in a row, you still are bringing to the 6th repair more than you had the first time, right? You're bringing more awareness, more understanding, more. Like Teresa and I have relived patterns that we've been experiencing for years, but to different degrees and in different, situations. But we have such a greater understanding, not only of our upper limits, but of the universal laws and how your subconscious mind works and what's important. Like we used to think that if you hit even an upper limit, that you would have to go back and, okay, now you got to go back to the drawing board and you got to rehash your traumas and you're this and you're that. And it's like, and now it's like, I understand the value in going back to the root to change the way we believe. But that's the extent of, I think, as deep as we need to go is just determine where it goes. Like he's talking here in this chapter about what triggers the upper limits. And there's really like 4 hidden barriers. And if you really were to look at yourself, get your journal out or, sit and have a conversation with yourself or just kind of ponder things, you'll find that your upper limits go back to one of these 4 barriers, right? And that's what I'm saying about going to the root of it. Because when you can determine the root of it, you can shift the belief around it.
And right before he gets into that, though, he talks about Lois, the 50-year-old, who her first session, she says, I could do just about anything well except stay married.
Right.
And this is so important, what I'm about to say next. And we've been regurgitating this information every episode, but let's do it again because the book is bringing it up.
Yeah.
Once he started talking to her, he realized all she did was scan. She's scanning everywhere, looking up, Googling, what happens to 50-year-olds? What does the dating scene look like for them? Is there a lot of fish in the sea? So, and we do this, right? looking at the statistics, looking for proof in your reality that why things aren't working out is because there's proof in the universe, in this reality, that 50-year-olds have no chance in the dating world. What do you think is happening to the subconscious mind every time you're scanning and looking for proof? What is its job, you guys? We've repeated this every episode.
17 weeks in a row now.
Its job is to give us more of what we believe to be true. So you're feeding it statistics. You're feeding it proof that in this world, it's hard as hell for 50-year-olds to find, somebody to marry and to actually stay married, because the statistics for divorce, listen, it doesn't matter what the fuck statistics are. It does not matter. Nothing is true unless we accept it as true in our reality. What do you want to believe is true? That will be true. And once your subconscious accepts it, that's what you're going to start to experience in your reality. So go ahead with the barriers.
I want to say one more thing about that, because when she said, and I literally rolled my eyes at the book when she said, I can do just about anything while except stay married. So you have to understand too, she said that to this guy in this one session, but chances are she's been saying that to everybody for years, right? And it's funny because when we get later into one of the barriers, I'm gonna bring this back up, because there's something that I realized I had been saying for years and years and years. And I haven't said it in a long time, but I still used to say it a lot. And it still is, this barrier is still very prominent in my life. And it's something I'm going to have to actively look at again. Like I've already done this work before, but obviously I didn't go deep enough, or maybe there's a new level or something. Anyway, so I want you guys, whether you're watching on the replay or live or whatever, like whenever you're seeing this, I want you to comment below which of these hidden barriers you think applies to you most. And he says that there are 4, and chances are you do have more than one. He's like, I've never seen anybody have all 4, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. He's like, I've never seen anybody have all 4, but chances are you have more than one, because childhood is complicated, growing up is complicated, our minds are complicated, right? So hidden barrier number 1 is feeling fundamentally flawed. So if something you've repeated to yourself stems or roots down to, I cannot expand to my full creative genius because something is fundamentally wrong with me, then comment a 1 if that you think is your barrier. He says, this thought creates cognitive dissonance, the mind rattle that occurs when you try to hold 2 opposing thoughts at the same time. So his example is, given that I'm fundamentally flawed, like something is wrong or bad about me or with me, how can I possibly be this happy, this rich, and this creative if I'm not perfect, basically, right? He says, the cognitive dissonance must be resolved in one of 2 ways, by either returning to your previous thermostat setting, or by letting go of the old limiting belief, which allows you to stabilize at the new higher level. So of course, the first part of that is to go back to where your thermostat setting is comfortable. That's hitting an upper limit, right? That's when you sabotage the progress you're making and saying, okay, well, I am fundamentally, and this is happening subconsciously. Remember, this is not you walking around going, oh yeah, I'm flawed, so this can't happen. This is your mind saying, this is what I believe to be true. So I have to have my reality reflect that back to me. So how can I stir shit up so that we go back to where we were, where I'm comfortable and I know that I deserve that level of happiness only? Okay. You follow me? Okay. So he goes on to say here, the fear of being fundamentally flawed brings with it a related fear. It's the fear that if you did make a full commitment to living in your zone of genius, you might fail. It's the belief that even your genius is flawed, and that if you expressed it in a big way, it wouldn't be good enough. So it's safer to play safe and play small. And we kind of touched on this in one of the previous episodes where, we fear fulfilling our purpose, fear fulfilling our zone of genius, because, well, what happens if I'm not even good at that? Then I have a purpose, but I can't even do that right. So what's even the point of me even being here? If I can't even fulfill my own reason for being on this earth, then what's the point, right? Which is never going to happen. But that is a fear that we have embedded in our subconscious and he says in here, it usually comes from childhood somewhere, right?
And the reason that he gives here of what he figured out is like, I mean, do you want to go into that or?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when he's digging deeper in his session, trying to figure out where does this belief about him being flawed come from. His parents always had conflict from the time that he was little. It says that they got into an epic battle over money, a conflict that went on for years. His parents separated, father got remarried. It says, in a moment of alcohol-induced candor, his father confessed to Carl that he could never look at him without simultaneously feeling hatred for Carl's mother. The father had convicted Carl of a crime Carl couldn't understand or name. All he knew was that his father looked at him differently than his younger half-brother. Carl unconsciously convicted himself of the crime too. Years later, he would tell me, I figured if he looked at me that way, I must have done something wrong, but I could never get anybody to tell me exactly what I'd done. Dude, that is so deep, because how many parents, go through this where they hate the other parent and the child reminds them of that parent, and they're constantly telling the kid, oh, you remind me of your father, or you do this like your mother, not even realizing how much damage is being caused. It was really mind-blowing to me, because I know firsthand that this happens all the fucking time. And look at this. I mean, has Fortune 500 companies, and he's still hitting upper limits because something that happened in childhood that the parents did to him. It's wild. It's crazy. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to sit down after this right here like, oh shit, my mom did this to me, or my dad did this to me. I can see exactly where it came from. I mean, I love everybody in my family too, but for a while I was questioning the way that I spoke, because it was like, you speak like your father. And my dad was very, very stern, very strong, but he believed in what he said 100%. You could not convince him otherwise. And to be honest with you, he really was never wrong. He's a fucking genius. Yeah. You know, but it started making me question, you know, God, do I speak to them? Like, do I actually, am I talking down to them? And I'm not. It's just that they're not used to the way, you know, somebody not sugarcoating things to protect people's feelings when you're speaking to them. And don't get me wrong, I always speak from a place of love, but I will speak the truth. That's and that's how my dad was. He always spoke the truth no matter what. But it kind of made me question myself a little bit, like, should I tone it down? And I even got that, you know, you should tone it down the way you talk and when you come at people. Why? Because maybe those people need me exactly how I am, right? I need that. I can't have people sugarcoating shit when they talk to me, because then I just like blow you off. When you give me the truth, it stings for a moment, but I'm like, oh shit, they're right.
Helpful.
Okay. It makes me think about what I'm doing and actually change, you know?
Right. And, you know, we put a preface on this too. Like, I don't believe the majority of the parents out there are not doing these things on purpose. And of course they don't realize that this is what they're doing in the long run. Right. But this is part of the process. This is part of the process.
You know, and I don't mind talking about my life, because I feel I'm only here to use my life experience to guide and help people on this journey, you know? So my siblings are going to watch this. I don't give a shit. I'm the only girl. So it was always like, dad favors you, dad, dad. So even that really affected me, because I felt like I couldn't share like, oh, dad did this for me, or, you know, my dad's so amazing. They didn't have the same feelings towards my father, because it was like, oh, you favored your daughter, but not realizing that a son and a daughter are completely different, right? I have 3 boys and a girl. It's completely different right now with this one girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, she gets most of my attention, and not because I'm trying to deny my boys of any of me, but it's just a different way that they're getting raised. You have to give them different attention. Girls have periods. They have so much more emotion than the boys. Yeah. And plus, girls are more fragile. Like, the world eats them up a little bit more than sons, if I'm making sense here.
Especially right now with the social media influence. Like, thank God, like, being a girl was hard enough for me, and I didn't have also all this comparison on social media and all of this BS too, right? Like, I can't even imagine having a teenager now. Yeah,
it's crazy. And you just, like, you nailed it right now. there's so much pressure on them, you know, and I'm going little side tangent, but I have to like limit the time that she's even on social media because I noticed such a difference in her behavior, and she's more worried about what she's wearing, you know, what if she has her makeup on and how it looks, her everything.
Yeah.
There's so much more pressure, but you know, back to that, a lot of parents, we're unconsciously creating these things in our children, right? My parents, they love all of us exactly the same, right? They would do anything for all of us, but the daughter's love and taking care of the daughter was a little bit different. You know, I didn't have very much freedom growing up, whereas, hey, they had a shit ton of freedom. I could cry about that. Like, you guys got all the freedom. Shit, I didn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that really affected me in a lot of ways because I felt like I couldn't share my happiness of what my dad did for me or things that were happening in my life because it was just like, yeah, whatever. Well, you're the fucking spoiled one. You get everything. Yeah. So it kind of took my happiness away from me. But everybody involved was responding unconsciously, right? It's not that my brothers don't love me, that they don't care for me or nothing like that. It's just their unconscious reaction to everything. And this is what we're doing. We're living unconsciously until we do this work. Then we can see. And you guys, this work, it helps in so many ways, right? We're killing these upper limits. We're changing our view and our perspective in so many ways to be able to let go any jealousy we've ever had, any animosity, any anger. We're able to forgive because we can see that we all did these things unconsciously. Yeah. Unconsciously.
Yeah.
It heals in so many ways.
Well, and I want to just, also say like, okay, so we're talking about how as adults, our childhoods affected us because, from the ages of 0 to 7, your mind is just absorbing everything going on and it creates your programming, right? Like that's how you are. When we're talking about programming, that's what we're talking about is however your mind is shaped, your subconscious is shaped between 0 and 7, right? That's why pretty much everything goes back to childhood because that's where that's where your mind picks up how it thinks life is supposed to be, right? We've talked about this before, how the subconscious mind doesn't know anything can't differentiate between something that is right or wrong or good or bad or empowering or disempowering. It just absorbs what's happening as this is what it is. And it creates the blueprint for how you're going to live your life, which is why, we say things like, oh my God, I married my father, or, oh my God, I speak just like my mom or whatever, because our brain is programmed to seek out those things because that's the blueprint we've been given. Okay. So, but also consider that this work is not only beneficial to heal those things and to heal ourselves, but also allows us to be better, more mindful parents for our kids and then in generations to come, right? Because now, like I've said before, when I snap at my son, I'm much more aware of how that can, like how it could affect him in the future. And of course we can't totally change the course of what's supposed to happen in their lives anyway, but it becomes easier to go, okay, wait a minute. No, I don't want to leave it like that because I don't want this other repercussion to come. So I want to deal with it now, or I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to try to caution myself against creating these barriers in him. And again, what's supposed to happen is what's supposed to happen and we can't change that. But I do think doing this work has definitely helped me become a more mindful, more present, more thoughtful parent. And that's, the whole thing is we're supposed to be giving our kids better lives than we had and so on, right? And it's my dream that eventually, maybe even by the time we have grandkids, that they don't have these same things. And these kinds of books are totally, useless because they don't have these same issues because they were raised by conscious, aware, mindful parents. That would be an absolute dream come true. So hidden barrier number 2, okay, is disloyalty and abandonment. I know that this is a common one for sure. And I do think it applies at least medium to me. So the barrier shows up in this way. I cannot expand to my full success because it would cause me to end up all alone, be disloyal to my roots, and leave behind people from my past. Okay, so he says in here, there's a couple of questions you can ask yourself. If you're not sure if this applies to you, you can say things like, did I break the family's unspoken or spoken rules to get where I am? Even though I am successful, did I fail to meet the expectations of my parents or the expectations that my parents had for me. And this is like things like my parents, I've heard my parents say, I work hard for my money. You know, I've been on my feet all day, da, 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 da. Like they obviously have beliefs that it is hard to make a living and it's hard to even, you know, make enough to cover your expenses and things like that. And I know that that was passed on from their parents. But so this is what he's talking about. If that's like an unspoken rule that your family has, that you have to work hard for your money and this is how life needs to be and da 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 da, and then you're all of a sudden now you're an entrepreneur and you're being successful just talking on a podcast, you know, and helping clients improve their lives and things like that. Like that does break an unspoken rule of the family that it's hard to make money and you need to work this many hours and, you know, you have to put your kids in daycare and this and that because you can't be for them and all of that, right? So he says, if you answered yes to either of these questions, you're likely to feel guilty later as you expand into more and more success. You're likely to feel at a deep and unconscious level that your quest for a life of your own and success on your own terms has come at the cost of leaving behind your roots and being disloyal to those who loved you. Right? So this is why you follow breakthroughs of success with bouts of self-punishment. Right? And he says himself that I think this is the one that he said he has too.
Or people stay in relationships because it looks good on paper and that's what their family would like them to be in, right? And they're miserable.
Yeah.
And they're limiting themselves from an amazing and beautiful life that is waiting for them because they're worried about what their family is going to think about them. And, you know, they don't want to be disloyal to them. Right. Or, you know, sometimes too that person our family has got used to and everybody likes them. But ultimately, you're holding yourself back from true happiness and true love because you're so afraid of what everybody else is going to think.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, this doesn't apply just to businesses and employment and success and the way we earn money. This applies to all areas of our life. It applies to friendships too, right? Like you grow apart from a friend, but you know, you feel like, oh, well, I don't want to leave them behind, which also goes into barrier number 4, which we'll get to in a second. But you know, I've been friends with this person for so long and I don't want them to think that I've changed or whatever. And it's like, but people do change. They've changed too, you know? And so it's like he says,
sometimes we've talked shit about the people that we're becoming before we had an awareness, you know? So it's like, what's everybody going to say now? Now I'm becoming that person that I didn't like, but this is why we can't give a fuck what people say or think because we were unconscious talking shit. And now like we're becoming these better versions. And the better version is those people that we were talking shit about.
Yeah.
So,
but again, like we're always projecting our own limiting shit onto other people. Right. Yep. So ultimately, if somebody's triggering you, which is why you would talk shit about anybody, right? If they're triggering you, when you're unhealed and don't know any better, you're going to use that as fuel for why you don't like them, why people shouldn't follow them, da 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 da. But it's like, but you're projecting your own things onto them and you're only seeing what you're choosing to see, right? Like Teresa said, you're scanning your reality for proof of what you already believe to be true. Instead of seeing all of the good things they're doing or all of the ways that they're, you know, helping and all of the ways they're actually paving the way and showing you what's actually possible, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective, right? And you know, a lot of this, like Teresa was saying, if maybe it's a relationship thing or, you know, there's some other uncomfortable situation going on. He says here, and I remembered this line in this book for like, I don't know how many years. Behind every communication problem is a sweaty 10-minute conversation you don't want to have. However, the moment you work up the courage to have it, you collect an instant reward in relief, as well as open up a flow of communication that will allow you to resolve the situation, right? Like we make it worse in our head than it needs to be. And then in this case, specifically, they're talking about this couple who they were engaged and then his parents were like well-to-do and, you know, well off and all this. And she comes from like a hippie family and the parents of the man didn't really like her too much and said that they couldn't get married until after he had already gotten his PhD and was a, you know, licensed doctor in a practice or whatever. And then after they graduated, they ran off and eloped. And her mom was like, of course she's a hippie. So she's like, oh, good for you. Like, you know, good. That's amazing. And they didn't tell his parents for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And so they're sitting with the author who originally was a counselor or therapist or whatever. And he's like, we need to call them right now. right? And they're like, oh, I don't want to. And it's like, but you just do it right now and get it over with. You'll feel so much better at the end of it, right? And so, and they have this 10-minute sweaty conversation, and okay, yeah, like the conversation wasn't fun, but then they all felt better afterwards. And whenever you're keeping information from somebody,
in the process of them not wanting to, okay, like me not wanting this morning to go on, the lawnmower and all this shit going on, right? They didn't want to have this conversation. They just went on to that hippie mom's house to celebrate with her because they knew it.
Yeah.
But what happened? They both got, what was it, poison oak?
Poison oak. Yeah.
They ended up getting this inflamed, itchy, this whole rash all over them, just because they were avoiding having to tell his parents.
Yeah.
So again, we start sabotaging, we start creating all these different scenarios, accidents. Some of the worst shit happens just because we didn't face these fears and we let it marinate. And we've done this, I've done this, I'm guilty of it. I was avoiding something for many years, and it just came up recently, and I was just like, oh, even though it sucked so bad to have to deal with it, but I had instant relief. And then I felt relief in so many other areas of my life at the same time. And I didn't realize that one thing was just blocking me everywhere. Yeah. And that's usually the case. Yeah. I've had a similar situation where it's like, as it coming up sucked, like you said, and dealing with it sucked, but at least then that worst part, like that really is the worst part, and then it's over with. So yeah. Like you said, it's just they got the poison oak. They could have avoided it, as they had the conversation. They bickered back and forth with the parents. Then everything was fine. Yeah, everybody was happy. Everything's good. Yeah. So that's what he says. A sweaty 10-minute conversation nobody wants to have. Like everything will be better on the other side. So hidden barrier number 3 is believing that more success brings a bigger burden. Okay. So he says the upper limit mantra goes like this: I can't expand to my highest potential because I'd be an even bigger burden than I am now. And the example that he gives, he says, this applies to me like 1,000,000%, because he said, when I was born, so when his mom got pregnant with him, the author Gay Hendricks, she had already an older son, like one son. And a couple of weeks after she conceived him, his dad passed away. And so she already was having trouble supporting herself and this son. And then she finds out somewhere along the line that she's actually pregnant with the second baby, who she can't really afford to raise. Now, thankfully, she lived next door to her parents, who loved him and were more than happy to support and look after him and all of that. But she said he said, was continuously reminded that he was a burden on the family because, like I said, she already couldn't afford to have the one kid, and now she's got 2. Right. So again, this kind of bleeds back into barrier number 1 too, where you're constantly the reminder of shit that didn't go right. You know what I mean? And so he says, and then he's, this carries on for years and years and years. Before he even knew about this work, he wrote his first book. Him and his wife have written several books together, and it must have been one of those. I don't know. He doesn't say the name of the book, but he takes this book to a family thing, and he brings a copy for everybody, thinking like, look what I did. Like, here's a copy of my book. I'm so, I'm proud of myself, and you should be proud of me too. And all of this. And he's like, nobody, they kind of looked at the book and put it down. They're like, they didn't open it. They didn't congratulate me. They didn't anything. They just so he's like, now that I realized what was going on, because I'm a burden, anything I produce is a further burden. So any of my success is a further burden on the family. Right. And he said he's found that when he removed the guilt of the crimes our parents and siblings convict us of before we walked into kindergarten, we're liberated from the main issues that trigger the upper limit problem, because he had to realize, like, okay, wait a minute. It's not my fault that I was born. And my mom would have felt this way about any kid that came along, any situation that she couldn't afford to take care of. Just like in the barrier number 1, the kid who his dad looked at him badly all the time because he reminded him of his mother, right? And that would have happened with any kid. It's not him specifically. He's not fundamentally flawed. It's just that he unfortunately is the product of a relationship that was doomed to break down. And so the dad didn't know how to deal with his shit properly and projected that onto his son. And this is the same exact thing in kind of a different scenario where the mom It's so deep though, because I mean, even myself, you know, I've said how hard it was having 2 kids before I was 20.
Right.
And when people ask me about my life and stuff, and I've said this in front of my children, not realizing, like, I had like an aha moment, like, oh my God, I gotta go hug them right now and tell them how sorry I am. I'm so sorry. Because shit, it was a fucking struggle. Mm-hmm. I used to cry all the time, like, oh my God, how do I do this? Like, and I was young as hell.
Yeah.
And not realizing I've probably made them feel like a burden in some way or another. You know what I'm saying? So I love this book so much. There's so many realizations. Once we have this, like, we could start nurturing our kids now in a way that we couldn't before, because we didn't have this awareness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I
exactly.
sent my son a text message. You are so fucking amazing. He is. They are. But it was just like, oh my gosh, I can see right now. Totally. Well, after I read this chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, I can see where I have affected their lives so much deeper than what I even realized. But it's a beautiful thing. You know, it's not for us to sit there and have guilt and, you know, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this and that. No. Okay. Shit. All right. Now I know where I can fix this.
Yeah.
And already start shifting your life. It's so crazy. Because we go through challenges every single day, right?
Right.
And we just think like the universe is throwing random shit at us. It's really not. Nothing is fucking random. Especially after you're reading this. Everything is interconnected. And it all has to do with our belief systems. Yet again.
Yeah.
Subconscious. It's just reprogramming. Subliminals.
It's so good. But that's what I mean, right? Like, this stuff, doing this work makes you more aware. And I think it makes you a better parent, because you can take this stuff and, okay, yeah, like, we did make mistakes. We didn't know any better, but now that we do know better, we also have the tools to help correct it, right? There's no point in sitting there feeling shitty about yourself and playing victim to the whole situation, because it's like, okay, well, obviously I'm not a piece of shit human being. Like, obviously, if I knew better, I would have done better. I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time, and where I was personally at the time, right? And again, you know, and this is something that Teresa and I had a conversation about, because I went to her one day and I was just like, oh my God, I fucked this up. I messed this up. I did it. And she was like, look, though, listen to me for a minute. Don't you think that even if you guys could go back in time and you could ask Dominic, you know, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, but it's going to lead to this and this and this. Do you think he would still agree? And I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, well, then, you know what I mean? Like, and she's like, and you're forgetting that you both agreed to all of this before you even came here. You know, like, you have to remember that because I mean, obviously we've talked about this before. We believe deeply in reincarnation and past lives and future lives and all this, different dimensions, timelines, blah, blah, blah. And so she's like, you chose this, both of you. For whatever experiences you're having is because you agreed to it for whatever you are meant to experience. And he agreed to all of this too for whatever he's meant to experience. So if you were to go back and change that, you would change the trajectory of who he's supposed to be. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. It made me feel so much better. So much better.
Yeah. And that's what everybody has to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Even if you did do something and it was fucked up, I promise you, it was supposed to be done that way. I know it sounds bad, but it was part of your child's molding for their soul as well, or whoever it was that you're interacting with. So, you know, and I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday too, like, you hear this a lot, and I don't like to go into the Bible and stuff like that all the time, but it's referenced in there, like, forgiveness. And that's really what this journey is about too, is forgiving, especially yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like, over and over and over and over again, forgiving yourself. I think that's a theme right now as well. That's why it just came out of my mouth, because I was thinking about somebody that I did Reiki on yesterday, and everywhere that she had blockages in her body, it was like she wasn't forgiving herself for the situations that, and honestly, it was situations that she was in that she really didn't have no control over. It was just things that had to be done to survive in those moments. And that's really what this is about. We're all trying to survive, you know, and we do things in those moments that sometimes are not the best choices, but again, they are, because they happen exactly how they're supposed to, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that is another thing that the collective is dealing with right now. Because I actually had two clients yesterday, and it was pretty much the same thing. You know, not forgiving themselves for stuff and choices that they made, and not forgiving other people. We have to, because if not, you guys, it's like you put yourself on a fish hook. You're keeping yourself there. You know, so forgiving is not saying that, you know, your feelings are not legit, or somebody else's feelings were not legit, or, you know, what they did wasn't wrong to you in that human form in that moment. But forgiving is so that you can make peace with it. You release it out of your body. Mm-hmm. It's not making you sick. Right. You're not operating in the subconscious from this place anymore. Right. And you're releasing yourself from this hook. You're not stuck in that same trauma and regurgitating it over and over and over, and just reliving the pain over and over and over and over and over. Yeah. It all happened for a reason. There was a lesson in there for your growth, for your expansion, as well as everybody else that was involved.
Yeah, exactly. Hanging on to it and feeling bad because you feel like, well, it was bad, I should feel bad about it. That's not doing anybody any good, you know? Nope. And you're not allowing yourself, like, the only reason we're given these challenges, and I mean, I have not, I'm going to be very honest, I've never read the actual Bible, but I have read A Course in Miracles, which I realize is not the same thing. I'm not trying to say it's the same thing, but it's the closest I've gotten. Okay. And so he says in there, you know, that we have to forgive ourselves and move on, because if you hang on to that, you're not doing anybody any good. And if you're not doing anybody good and you're hanging on to it, you're missing the whole point of the challenge to begin with. The whole point of the challenge to begin with is so that you learn and expand and grow in that sense, like in that scenario, so it doesn't happen again. And so you can help your fellow man in the future with the same thing, which is why I said, I don't know, like 51 minutes ago, that we have experiences for a reason. And that's why the coaches that you're attracted to, for example, you find out somewhere in their story that they've actually been through something or that's why you're drawn to them to begin with, is because they've shared a story and it makes you feel like you can relate to them because they get it, right? And why, as a coach yourself, if you are one, you find that your clients are reflecting back to you things that you have previously worked through or even are going through right now, because, and maybe you're not helping them with that exact thing, but because it's also a collective energy thing, but like attracts like. You're going to have gone through the things you've gone through for a reason so that you can help other people. And that's one thing that I always remember when I'm going through something hard is like, okay, well, I owe it not only to myself, but to everybody who's going to come to me in the future to deal with this properly, or as best I can, as properly as I can right now, given what I know and what I have, so that I can help other people. Because I know that the only reason this is happening is so that I can be of help and service in the future. Right? Okay, so let's move on to the last hidden barrier. This one is like, it might as well have a picture of me in this book. It's like unreal. Okay, so the unconscious mantra for hidden barrier number 4 is the crime of outshining. The mantra is, I must not expand to my full success, because if I did, I would outshine whoever and make him or her look or feel bad. It says this barrier is very common among gifted and talented children because they get lots of their parents' attention, but they also get a strong subliminal message along with it that says, don't shine too much or you'll make others feel bad or look bad. Okay. Our one unconscious solution gifted children devise is to turn down the volume on their genius so that others don't feel threatened by it, or they continue to shine, but not as brightly. They continue to shine brightly, but they turn down their enjoyment on it so that it looks like they're suffering. Okay. And I've highlighted a couple of things in here that I really wanted to make sure that I said before we hop off, because like, holy Hannah. So it says here, I literally put a star and an exclamation point next to it, because ask yourself if you're afraid your success will steal attention from someone who you've been led to believe needs it more. Okay. And this is what I was referring to earlier when I said, I have said this. My sister needed it more. My parents would say, your sister needs it more. I'm sorry. And my mom would literally sit with me and she's like, I know we've been spending a lot of time with your sister, but she needs more than you. You're so easy. You're so self-sufficient. You're so mature. You've got it together. Your sister just needs more help. She just needs more. She needs more than you. Right? So my entire fucking life, I have been toning all of my shit down so that I don't outshine her. But something I came to a realization a while ago, and I'm going to have to circle back to it, I guess, is that we are different people. We have different purposes. We are leading different lives. There is no way, And it's not that I want to outshine her. It's just that what I'm meant to do inevitably is going to put me in at least the family spotlight. And I just can't do anything about that. And if I don't do that, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I'm not doing what I'm here to do. So that's doing a disservice instead of just outshining my sister, who I don't even think like she would be happy for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not even like she would feel any ill will toward me if I ended up, cancel clearly when I end up being where I need to be. But it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I've been my whole life. She needs it more than you. Right. And it's like, no, that doesn't apply.
That was kind of like what my dad did as well. Right.
Yes.
Like, your sister needs more of me. Your sister needs more love. Your sister needs more help with this. Your sister.
Right.
So in my head right now, I'm like, oh, that must be exactly what was going through their head.
Right. And again, like, your dad meant it in the best way possible. My mom meant it. My sister, like, realistically, and like, this is what I was saying, I've said, she did need more support and help. Like, she had a lot more things going on in her little mind. And it turns out she's got all kinds of, she needs extra help. Okay. Like, it is literally the case. So as an adult, I can see that there were signs of what was inevitably going to happen way back then. You know what I mean? So I can see that. And I can't, as a parent, I can't say that I wouldn't do the exact same thing if I had more than one kid, which is probably one of the many reasons we decided to only have one, so that this didn't happen to him. Right. But there
will be other things that only child deals with,
Right,
it's like,
of course,
you can't fucking get away from this shit. And that's what we try to do as parents. We're trying to shield everywhere. Right.
Exactly.
Making all these decisions based on, what we don't want our children to go through, which we should heal, because there are certain things that we need to fucking end, certain cycles. But ultimately, they came here to experience Earth on their own journey.
Right.
Right. So there gets to a point where we just have to trust that everything that we've instilled in them, right, it's going to all click in their head one day. And we got to guide. Yeah. We can't necessarily put them in this fucking bubble that shields them from everything in the world.
Right. And it's funny watching your kids go through upper limits themselves, because I remember in kindergarten, and we've never spoken about any of this, which is why it's so interesting to know what we know. So my son was in kindergarten, and he does not like to be the center of attention with a lot of, if it's just like one or two people, he's okay. But if it's like tons of people, he does not like it at all. It makes him very uncomfortable. And I mean, that probably in itself is an upper limit, but anyway, so it was show and tell day. And he ended up getting sick, and he couldn't go to school that day. And I remember as soon as we decided that he was
my
sick,
kid is sick every time they have to do a presentation. I'm like, you got to do a presentation again today, right? Yeah. How'd you know? I said, because you're sick every single, in my head, it's like, because you're hitting upper limits. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, right.
But I already know they had a presentation that day. Yeah.
It was just funny because I was so excited about his first little show and tell. And then he ends up manifesting this sickness, and he was legitimately sick. Like, I'm not saying he was trying to make it up. I don't think he even connected the dots. I don't even know if he remembered it was show and tell day. Like, but subconsciously he manifested an illness that kept him home from school. And I was just like, oh my God.
And that's the thing, guys, you will legitimately make yourself sick.
Yeah. You
will legitimately make yourself sick. It will be an actual illness that shows up. And that's what we don't want to be doing.
Right.
We don't want to make ourselves sick.
No, and it's not even like getting sick thinking about the thing over and over again. You could totally let it go and negate it. Like, this is a classic example of mine, is several years ago when I had to that time my best launch ever, my highest cash month, and I was so sick after for like 3 weeks. It was one of the worst. I don't even know what I had. I mean, quite honestly, maybe I had COVID. I really don't know. But it was.
Yeah, we were messaging back and forth, and I was like, you already know what happened.
I knew right away what happened. I knew right away. But so Gay Hendricks says in here, one great thing about upper limit work, like, you guys, you're probably sitting there going, why are they so excited about upper limits? Because it doesn't take much time to spot where the problem is coming from. Like, once you know what you're looking for, once you see it, you've turned a light on in a dark room. And then the cleanup work just becomes cleanup work. It's not, once you have that, this is why we're saying awareness is more than half the battle, because once you know what you're looking for and what you're looking at, it's so much easier to deal with it. It's people that are walking around not knowing that they're hitting upper limits and going, well, why can I not get my business to XYZ? Why can I not hit this income goal? Why do I keep attracting these loser guys? Why do I keep sabotaging these good relationships? Why do I keep eating this thing that I know is going to make me feel sick? You know, why do I keep doing this? Why does this keep happening? The answer is in the patterns. Okay. And he says here, your upper limit problem lives in the moment by moment interactions you have with yourself and the people around you. There's only one way to get this data, and that is to focus your keen awareness on specific aspects of your daily life. Okay. This is why I love talking about this stuff, because as much as, I mean, this is not about going around pointing at all of our flaws, but it is about having an awareness to see, okay, once I know where this flaw is, where this barrier is, where this trigger is, now I can do something about it.
It almost is, though, seeing all your flaws all day long. Not necessarily your flaws, just where you're holding yourself back, literally.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? So now, and this is why I love like subliminals and like affirmation work and self-identity work and all of this stuff, because now that it's been, again, raised in my awareness that I have a fear of outshining my sister, I can calm my nervous system down and go, okay, you know what? It's okay. Like, it's not necessarily about outshining her. It's about you fulfilling your purpose. And there's no reason that she can't be part of that. Like, and it's not like your parents are going to love you more and her less just because you're, you know, more successful than she is. And again, success comes down to how closely you're fulfilling your purpose, not how much money you make, not what you have. It comes down to your amount of happiness, your amount of peace, the amount of freedom that you have based on what you desire in life, right? And how closely you're living your purpose. That is the true measure of success anyway.
Being in your zone of genius.
Yes, exactly.
That's what that is, which is living out your purpose. Like, you're always going to feel like something is missing inside of you.
Yeah.
Always. This is why you have these people, right? He's talking about the CEO from eBay that he worked with before. This other person with the Fortune 500 company, multiple. Right. Why do they still not feel fulfilled? Because they were not totally living in their purpose in the zone of genius. And that there's so many benefits to this book. It's insane, but there's no other way around that.
No.
You're never going to feel complete until you are fulfilling what you came here to do. What do you say? Like, to your fullest potential, not partially, but to your fullest potential.
Right. Not in your zone of excellence, in your zone of genius. Right.
Right.
And so I am interested to hear, which of the 4 barriers do you think applies to you guys? Like, go ahead and comment below if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. Cause like I said, I have a little bit of some of them. Definitely number 4 is like huge for me. I 1000%. And I have a whole bunch of stories about how my mom unintentionally instilled in me that that I shouldn't outshine her. Right. And she's also younger than me too. She's also 2 years younger. So I also have the oldest sibling, whatever that's called too. Yeah. Yeah. So there's also that. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with being the oldest. You have to be a good leader. You've got to be a good this. You've got to be a good that, blah, blah, blah. Right. So there's just a lot. And again, it all is part of the divine plan. Like, I don't want to sit here and be mad at my mom for, you know, giving my sister more attention and for being the oldest and all this. Like, it's all part of it.
But do you see where this is all like meshing together right now? Because we talked about this a couple episodes back about, you know, holding on to that wound with the parent.
Right.
So this, you're meshing it, healing it all right now. Yeah. We cannot blame our parents. This is why, you guys, especially for those of us that are our parents, and, you know, before having children, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. My kids are going to be this way and everything's going to be perfect. And then you're a parent and you're like, oh, fuck, you fuck up too, constantly. God forbid if my children would hold all these things against me that I did, not knowing, only trying to survive. Yeah. I can only imagine, you know.
I saw this this post Mel Robbins shared. I saw it late last night. It literally made me laugh out loud because she's like, it was copied from somebody else. And it was, okay, me when I was a kid, don't tell me what to do, da, 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 da. And now, me now, please give me a detailed breakdown, step by step, what I need to do. Please, somebody give me instructions, because we don't know. You know, we grow up thinking our parents know what's going on, and then you realize that nobody knows what the fuck's going on. And thank God we at least have Google. We can at least Google and go into social media links and go ask people's opinions, right? Like, our parents only had the phone to the phone numbers they had already in their pocketbook, you know, like so anyway, everybody's just doing
it was
the best
busy. They weren't getting an answer from anybody for a while unless you make
That's
an emergency breakthrough.
Shit, Rob, that's right. So, you know, be super grateful that you're in this time and space and that you're, you know, hopefully following along with the book. Again, if you don't have a copy, I link to the Amazon you can order. I have a free PDF copy. I've got there's no excuse to not be following along. This book is amazing. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, audiobook somewhere too. I'm quite sure. It will change your life. And as soon as you can identify which of these barriers or which of the, maybe there's a couple that are holding you back, you'll be able, now that you are aware of it, you'll be able to see it in your reality as you're going around. Like you said, it's in your day-to-day interactions. And there's a lawnmower again.
I was like military truck. I'm like, what the hell?
And then, so so now that you have this awareness, you'll be able to see it more in your day-to-day life. And then as you see it, you'll be, okay, hang on a second. This doesn't apply to me anymore. This is based on this thing from childhood. This is based on this belief that I had. This is based on this one thing that I was told that I have for some reason hung on to. That doesn't apply to me now. I can let that go. I can dissolve it. I can forgive it, and I can move on. And I can allow myself to feel good more of the time, knowing that it's safe to do that. Right?
We're stopping the self-sabotaging habits that we have.
It's over.
That done.
No more.
Gone.
No. We're expanding our capacity to feel good all of the time. One day at a time, one interaction at a time, one situation at a time.
Yes.
So with that being said, thank you guys so much for hanging out live. And if you're watching on the replay, we appreciate you just the same. Thank you guys so much. Next week, we will talk about chapter 3. Obviously, we're just doing a chapter a week to keep it nice and easy to follow along with us, because I know everybody has busy lives and things going on. Just as a reminder, if you want to help us spread the word and reach more people, please go ahead and share this episode or any past episode, and then comment shared on the episode so that we can give you credit and send you off your free subliminal meditation and affirmation poster. And if you've already shared, we would also love it if you would tag your friends, family, coworkers, all the things, and we'll give you additional entries into our monthly giveaway, which we'll do at the end of the month. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We love you so much, and we will see you next week.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.